Let's go. How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Good. And welcome everybody to another exciting installment of the Terrorisk podcast. This is going to be episode 76. So it's popping, y'all. We got a whole lot to talk about, deep divers. I'm a Carmen. What's up, Carmen?
I'm doing pretty all right. Thank you for having me, as always.
It's been like a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, it's been a few weeks. Our usual routine. I'm sure I'm a favored returning guest.
Yeah.
Or if not, that's fine too.
No, for sure. It's I mean, I realize like I need like different guests on the show. Otherwise, it gets a little too
too stale. You need a rotating cast.
Not stale. It's
too predictable.
No, it's just I talk about different things with different people.
Yeah.
Point blank, you know. So let's see. Right now we were just watching Many Saints of Newark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just explaining how like I like the movie as a standalone thing and not like a
part
spin-off.
of the Sopranos extended universe. Wasn't it originally intended to be something entirely like it was? What is it? Is it David Simon or David Chase who's the Sopranos? One of the Davids got kind of strong-armed into making a Sopranos thing as opposed to a separate work of media.
And is that how this thing became? Part of the Sopranos verse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least when I vaguely recall reading.
What I like about this movie, Many Saints of Newark, is that it's a lot more racial.
Yeah,
you know they talk a lot more because it takes place.
Yeah,
in the
originally
70s.
it was going to be just about the Newark riots or whatever.
Well, the Newark riots were from what it looks like, as depicted in the movie, it was pretty racial. Apparently,
it was overtly a race riot. Yes,
Yeah.
It's from like the early like black radicalism and all that, early 70s kind of thing.
Yeah, we need more of those. Actually, no, we probably don't.
Yeah, no, we kind of got like we were talking earlier about how there's a lot of speed running or replays of earlier movements. Everyone's just rehashing the 60s and 70s over and over again, maybe the 80s too.
Yep.
And 2020 was our attempt to rehash race riots.
Yeah, and even back then, you know what's funny about the 70s is a lot of people will remember like, you know, the ghettos in America, in American cities like New York and all that shit in LA. And they would always talk about how like, oh, you know, like the ghetto black people were just like super violent and whatever because they were poor. I think like the South Americans were like way worse. You know, like the South American gangs, especially like the ones that made it over to
nowadays or
even back then.
There weren't that many. I mean, I guess there's Puerto Rican gangs in New York.
No. I'm not talking about gangs. I'm talking about like cartel. The gangs were just basically extensions of the cartels at that point.
Yeah, what? And well, we didn't have too much interaction with it at the time. I mean, I don't know. We were beyond, I don't know, CIA projects in Latin America, knocking over the leaders and the like.
Yeah, the CIA was doing their own thing. I mean, their main concern was fighting commies because that's what the president was telling like all the intelligence agencies to do. It's like, yo, we need you to fucking fight these communists in South America.
Well, it was part of domino theory that different nations would fall to communism if not prevented from doing so.
Yeah, but
reason which I don't know, reasonable or not, but certainly all of our projects were based around that. Now, I mean, it's an entirely different mindset to be living in a world where there's another superpower, the Soviet Union, and our relationship with it. I mean, it's a huge boon that Kissinger and Nixon were able to pry China away from the USSR, even though they had already had like a split. I forget when, like in the 50s, there was like a Sino-Soviet split.
Yeah.
But maybe early 60s. But it was a reasonable concern. A lot of like civil rights and stuff around the Vietnam War and drug war, all the craziness of the late 60s and early 70s probably did have a genuine feeling of fear of communist revolution in America. Certainly they were overtly saying that. A lot of the black nationalist groups, a bunch of the various left-wing terrorists at the time.
Yeah, but wasn't it like once Reagan came in, that's when he was able to like, all right, so we got the coke problem and we got the commie problem. Maybe there was a way we could, like kill two birds with one stone or something like that. And I think what they tried to do is Nicaragua became a communist state. I think, right? And once
Yeah.
Nicaragua became a communist state, that's when the U.S. decided to back the anti-communist rebel.
Oh, this is Sandinistas, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they back the Sandinistas to fight the commies, and they do it with they do it using Soviet weapons. So all right, so this is what the U.S. apparently did when Nicaragua got taken over by fucking commies. The U.S. came into possession of captured Soviet weapons, like a shit ton of AKs and stuff, and they were traded to the U.S. in secret by the Israelis. So the Israeli captured a bunch of Soviet weapons. They traded it to the Americans in secret, and the Americans took those guns and started giving it to the Sandinistas.
Yeah.
But that wasn't enough because the Sandinistas, you just give them guns and they didn't fucking do shit with it. Like they didn't care. Like we thought, oh, the Sandinistas want to fight the communist regime. No, they don't. They didn't give a fuck. They just wanted to take America's free shit. So what they started doing is they started like clamping down harder. They were like, we got to make these guys fight the communists. So what did they do? They started importing, like they started smuggling in soldiers, like the soldiers from Nicaragua to the United States to train them. But that didn't work. They brought like 900 soldiers to train, and like half of them just like.
Well, why would you? I mean, if you're in America, why would you stick around so you could go back to Nicaragua? You're far better off working below minimum wage in America, far more functioning state with a lot more wealth.
Yeah, and they couldn't do anything like a fucking manhunt or anything because well, you know, I mean, they weren't supposed to be there, so it's like
They weren't supposed to be there, and also, I mean, it's hard enough nowadays. But I mean, part of our things with migrants now is not willing to crack down on it. But even beyond that, it's like it was just hard to find people then, harder to.
what to like
Like, what's the point of a manhunt for it ultimately when?
yeah, it's just another random South American
Yeah,
in American streets.
and there weren't that many, but at the time,
Yeah.
but
It's I guess it's only
most Hispanics came to America within our lifetimes or just before our lifetimes. Hispanic population is very young. A lot of people are relatively recent arrivals.
yeah. Yeah. So, you know, that was the oh yeah. And once that whole operation blew the fuck up, like it was an absolute failure. What they decided to do to cover their tracks, I think they decided to blame the Iranians or something, or they got the Iranians to sell.
This is embarrassing, but for someone who normally has a lot of factoids, I know relatively little about Iran-Contra and all the weirdness of it.
There was
I
a
know
movie
about
about
that.
it. There was a Tom Cruise movie about it, where he played this guy Barry Seal, and Barry Seal was I think he was a former he was a former airliner pilot, and
I see.
he was into smuggling. He was a pilot for the TWA, got into smuggling. Instead of getting arrested and caught, he was approached by a CIA spook. Not
Yeah.
the racist terminology. I mean, like, you know, spook for spy.
The
And,
way most people use the term. We're not referring to scary things, yes.
and they tapped this guy Barry Seal to be an asset for the CIA to smuggle. I think it was it was basically smuggling guns. He started smuggling guns to the Sandinistas, but then once as he was operating in the Sandinistas, Barry Seal got approached by Pablo Escobar, Ochoa, and the third big guy, who the three cartel kingpins that would eventually create the Medellin cartel.
Yeah.
And the Medellin cartel, those were the guys that were like basically created the coke
The
market,
influx of cocaine,
which
and then
led
you
to
had
the
stuff-
crack epidemic.
right? And cocaine in the '80s in Miami, and all the thank you, all the people coming for all the Cubans coming in with cocaine in Miami.
Yeah. And it was wild. Well, the dirtiest motherfuckers around that we know of and that was recorded was the CIA. Everyone else was just trying to, like, you know, everyone was trying to supposedly, allegedly. I mean, yeah, they were scummy about like being in competition with each other over resources. But out of all the agencies operating in that whole like zone between like the FBI, the DEA, the fucking
Of American agencies.
mm-hmm.
Well, yes, CIA obviously the worst. So FBI is pretty bad, but yeah.
Yeah.
certainly you end up having a lot of weird intelligence agencies operations,
Well, they were
more so than when you had KGB around.
they were all going to
But
be involved eventually because the DEA were actually losing agents in the field in America,
mm,
like two suppliers that were like supplying insane amount, like because DEA agents were used to like taking like what like ounces of grass here and there and figuring out where it
yeah,
came from. But suddenly like they were like trying to do busts and their guys were getting shot, like, and suddenly they pick up like keys and keys of coke on the scene and they're like, where the fuck is this coming from? Like
yeah,
street value, this is worth over like like 50 G's at a time. So they were like, where did this come from? That's how they got sucked in. The FBI was bound to get sucked into it because wait, what's up? Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah, so what happened was the cartels also had so much money that they had assets in America. They had like a bunch of real estate. They had too much money going around, and it would eventually find its way to American soil. So that's when the FBI gets involved because the FBI loves investigating like white collar crime and shit like that and wire frauds and shit, which is exactly what they were doing, like money laundering. So that's how the FBI got sucked in. So everybody, it was like a shit show because
I know it was a controversy at the time around the Reagan administration.
well, yeah, that too. I mean, it's also like I think the big problem was like more than guns, more than communism, everybody was afraid of coke. Like Americans were just afraid of cocaine. I mean, sure, everyone's afraid of nukes. They weren't exactly afraid of commies. They weren't afraid of communism. They were afraid of nukes. They were afraid of getting nuked. They didn't give a fuck about like what communism was as an ideology and shit. They were afraid that the Soviets were going to fucking nuke them, right?
Yeah. I know. Well, it was just a big concern, and I mean, we had close calls a couple of times. Obviously, like
Yeah, the Cuban
Cuban
Missile
Missile
Crisis.
Crisis during the Yom Kippur War.
That's
Um,
exciting.
yes, I know. Very relevant, given that the 50th anniversary just had a massive massacre in Israel. During the Yom Kippur War, there was threats by like the Soviets to intercede on like Egypt's behalf or on the Arab
Didn't the
alliance
Israelis
part.
almost lose that?
Yeah, they were totally surrounded. Everyone was going to go on them against them hard. They had, I think, like a daring nighttime mission where they smashed the airfields of like Egypt and
Dude, you know
Jordan
what's scarier
and
than
like
that?
Syria, all in one night. They wiped out all the enemy air capacity.
What's scarier than that? This is real protocol for Israel. In that situation, they had a protocol where at any given time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, while they were in that situation, they had a jet flying around at all times loaded with a tactical nuke.
Yeah, they're not Samsung. I'm thinking about that because you're Korean. The
Samsung.
Samsung option.
Yeah. So there was a movie about that too. It was a Tom Clancy movie, The Sum of All Fears. So
Ah.
so in the movie, the narrative backdrop is that before the movie happens, a while ago during that Yom Kippur War, one of the jets that was flying around got shot down, and they never recovered the plane. They never recovered the nuke, and it got recovered. And then, like years later, decades later, a terrorist was able to get his hands on that Israeli shot down nuke, and it was like such a big deal for them because they were like, the CIA analyst Jack Ryan, who was assigned
Yeah.
on the case, trying to stop this catastrophe. He was like, they were like, where did they get the nuke though? Who gave them the nuke in the first place? Like, who gave the Israelis the nuke? And then the analyst on the other end of the BlackBerry was like, we did. Like,
Well,
Israel was supplied United States nukes to be able to, use to defend their.
no, I mean, I don't think that's actually true in reality. They definitely had engaged in a bunch of espionage to gain nuclear technology from us. They had like tests with South Africa and France. Like South Africa and France were big contributors to the Israeli Doomsday weapon program. Interesting note, Israel does not officially acknowledge that they have nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
but they always hint at it constantly. Like they aren't supposed to, they're like government officials are not allowed to say nuclear weapon or missile. They say doomsday weapon.
That's hilarious.
It's a very wacky thing. So they officially don't have nukes. They aren't or avoiding around. They're violating UN charter.
Imagine if they call it it's their doomsday weapon, and like they get into a situation where Israel is about to drop their doomsday weapon on a whole like populace, and everyone thinks it's a nuke, and then they finally drop it, and it's just a bomb that turns everyone into a homosexual.
Yeah, the doomsday weapon is
Yeah.
the entire population
Yeah.
turning gay.
Yeah, it's like, oh shit, it's like I almost prefer the nuke. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
man,
the Israelis just gassing the entire world with gay juice.
that would be maybe that's what would actually lead to world peace.
No, I don't think so. I think reproduction gets a lot harder, though still possible.
You know what
And
though? You know what I will say? Out of like, any one country's entire nuclear stockpile is really not enough. Like even if all like let's say Russia and America just went into
yeah,
all out nuclear war, all the nukes that both sides have, including the whole coalition and including all the subs and the
yeah.
Arctic bases, it's not enough to really blow up the world.
No, it's not to blow up
It's
the
the
world.
thing is like a lot of people will survive a nuclear war. What they
Yeah.
won't survive is nuclear winter. That's
Nuclear winter as a concept is somewhat questionable. It was hyped a lot to because of fears of nuclear winter. It's something I think possible, but a lot of physicists question whether it actually would work that way.
okay. So it's
Not
like
that a nuclear war would be obviously would be tremendously terrible. And
yeah,
yeah,
obviously, but I'm just saying like so there's going to be like not two waves. There's going to be multiple waves, but it's like so there's two types of targets generally on a top level basis. There's the defense targets,
Mhm.
which is like targets like let's say where we want to fire all our nukes at Russia.
Mhm.
First, we're going to target like their missile sites, their
Their
military
missile
bases,
sites,
their
military
yeah,
installations,
and
chain
then
of command,
then
then
you
large
target their
population centers.
no, then you target their industrial zones. You
Oh,
target
okay.
their factories, their resources, their all their shit. Though once you hit those two things, like with just a barrage of nuclear strikes, then it's over. They're done. This is why they have like as soon as one nuclear nuke goes off, they all have to start like fucking.
Firing. That's yeah, mutually assured destruction.
You know what? I used to like be really critical of sex scenes in like movies because they don't really move the plot along and they're kind of like self-serving. But I feel
Yeah.
like all the Italian mafia movies, it's like it's always earned, like because they're like salacious fucking
You're so horny, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're so horny.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's fair that it doesn't move the plot along, though a lot of things don't move the plot along in movies. How
Yeah, we're
many
still watching
significant?
Many Saints of New. It's still on in the background.
Well,
Like,
you're watching it more than me since I'm facing you. Um, the Have you ever seen Don't Look Now?
yeah, Don't Look Up.
No, Don't Look Now
Oh
from
no,
the '70s.
no, I didn't see Don't Look Now.
It's a very good movie. It's a horror movie. This couple, their daughter drowns at the beginning of the film. Spoiler alert for something that happens in the first minute of the movie.
Yeah,
And years later, or a year later, their relationship's on the rocks. They're in Venice. The husband, Donald Sutherland, is engaged in restoration work on churches in Venice,
yeah,
and there's a series of murders going on that are always in the background of the story. Obviously, it comes to a head at the end of it,
yeah.
but like midway through that movie, there's a sex scene that's very good, not so much for its eroticism, but because it actually does have
a narrative. Yeah, you know what?
the narrative significance of it is it shows that this couple is getting over hurdles in the relationship, that they're having sex
yeah,
again.
yeah. You're right. You know what?
And it's also intercut with them because they're a married couple getting dressed to go out to dinner, so it's not just a moment of sexual passion. It's being contrasted. It's shown as part of their domestic life and domestic bliss.
yeah.
It's just part of their relationship.
Yeah, it's a pivotal component to the dynamics between characters, especially if they're already like romantically involved.
Yeah,
Contextually. I actually
by far the best sex scene in sense of plot significance and in showing the relationship
well,
between
yeah.
these
I mean,
people.
it was very unfair of me to say that so like decisively. Clearly, a sex scene can be well done, and it can be the
The
sex
vast
scene
majority of times it isn't.
but the sex scene can also serve to propel the story forward in a way and to serve that purpose. But I will say this: sex scenes mostly happened with movies that weren't supposed to be like tentpole movies to appeal to as many people, like Marvel movies. They're almost like completely sexless.
No, Marvel movies are completely sexist.
Lord
They're
of the
also
Rings.
lacking in romance too. Lord of the Rings
It was
is
romantic, but it was also pretty sexless of a movie.
what?
Lord of the Rings.
No, I mean, hold on, let me finish my statement. Yeah, I mean, it's an older work and it's set in a time where it's just a story of men at war and men on an adventure. I have no problem with the lack of female characters in it, or almost.
All right, the best example of a sexless tentpole movie that's meant to appeal to as many people as possible. It's like the Marvel movies.
Yes.
Okay.
Marvel movies are lacking in romance,
Okay. What I will say this though is,
even though they could easily have romance in them.
but they don't, because
Yeah.
they feel like it will alienate, and they don't want to alienate anybody. They want it to just be. They want to just go run with the action comedy combo. That's all they want to do.
Yeah, it's
Because it
been
works.
machine precision, well, like algorithmically precision.
But they
designed.
don't do it. But you know what? It's like you said. It is like it's very cookie cutter. It's not done like good. It's like action comedy done in a very sterile way. You know what, an example of like, and these are Disney movies too, and they actually,
Yeah.
and they're not sexless, and they have like huge, you know what, they're not comedic action movies, they're like action movies,
Pirates of the Caribbean.
or they are, yeah.
Yeah, no, Pirates of the Caribbean is actually a good. I don't care for the sequels, only the first
No,
one.
I think the trilogy was the first three they were great. They were great.
First one's a
fucking
great
movies.
movie. I mean, in hindsight, they are better. I'm sure if I rewatched them now, they would seem better just in comparison to Marvel slop. But yeah, I mean, you have a romance there. You have like a romantic triangle. Not really, but well, there's like a romantic triangle between Jack Sparrow.
It's not
and
even a
Keira
romantic
Knightley.
triangle. It's like a triangle of will. Like they're
Yeah.
all independent.
Well, the
character
romantic
motivations.
triangle is Johnny Depp wanting to fuck
Keira Knightley.
Orlando Bloom.
Oh,
But yeah, you can have like and when you watch any old blockbuster from like the aughts or before, there's usually a romance subplot, not even a plot, a romance element. Some like a great movie like Top Gun. Not Top Gun. Well, actually, no. Well, Top Gun, yes, has a romance in it, but also I was going to say Con Air.
I never saw Con Air.
Oh, well, you
Nicolas
should.
Cage?
Con Air is great.
Yeah.
Con Air is like a action movie written by Tennessee Williams.
I actually really didn't like the romance in the second Top Gun movie. I was like, really? He was with this
Yeah.
banging taller chick, and then in the second movie, he ends up with some fucking MILF raising another man's child.
Well, I mean, he's an old guy. It seems entirely reasonable for him to be in that position.
Yeah, I mean,
really.
because they're all old guys.
Also, Jennifer Connelly is much better looking than Kelly McGinnis. She aged horribly. Nothing against her. She's just a normal person of her age. But, like, obviously, Connelly is a much better looking woman than Monday McGinnis.
I think what would have been better is if Maverick had a son already, like he was a parent, just divorced. And yeah, so he would seem less like a cuck, with his love.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I prefer it this way, where he's like never had a kid. He never was able to settle down to marriage.
No, and then Goose's kid would have been like, "How's Junior?" And then he's like, he misses his uncle, and he's like, "Yeah, well, blah blah blah. It'll be a little awkward." And he's like, "You should still come by sometime. My son misses you." And then he's like, whatever, blah, blah. I think it would have been good. I think it would have worked.
Yeah.
But maybe it just would have been too much shit, and then already, like, it's a pretty...
I think it works better with him being a childless single man. I think it's fitting for him to raise another man's child. I'm not saying this is an insult to him. I think the character in the movie arc works a lot better, where he's looking for, like, surrogate kids, like in his co-pilot.
So he's like a Mr. Miyagi type,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marvel movies, like even the earlier ones have a perfunctory romance that always gets that ends up being abandoned as the movies go on.
Guardians of the Galaxy just did that.
Yeah,
But I like the way they did that. I think that was raw as fuck, because I hate Chris Pratt and I like to see his heart broken. It feels good. Actually, I don't hate Chris Pratt. I just think he's a fucking tool bag. Maybe that is hate. No, I don't think that's hate.
Yeah.
It's more of like
annoyance.
Kind of see him as a younger brother, even though he's older than me.
Yeah. He has irritating younger brother energy.
Yeah. Who's really like that? Fucking Jason Momoa. That guy looks like a dumbass.
Yeah, he does. He seems savvy enough. A bunch of the muscle action stars are actually very smart guys.
I think Henry Cavill is a smart guy.
Yeah.
I think Dave
Dolph Lundgren, though never anything other than a B movie actor. He is a very smart guy, genuinely. He has like a master's degree in chemistry.
Yeah. Who else do I think is a smart guy? Oh, fucking
Sylvester Stallone is a very smart guy.
Steven Seagal is actually surprisingly insightful. Not smart, I think he's wise.
Yeah. He is a dumbass in a lot of ways and
but
a
he's very
hilarious
wise.
figure. Yeah.
Like, who's better than him? Look at him. He's out there in Dubai, like teaching rich
Yeah.
people how to do Aikido. Like,
Doing that, he goes to Russia and to like former Soviet bloc countries to hang out with the dictators.
he's. I think Steven Seagal has a Dennis Rodman energy. You know, like if Kim Jong Un had celebrity friends, it would be Dennis Rodman, Steven Seagal.
Oh yes,
like,
I agree.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
they're equally likely to be like to have big fans in Central Asia.
Hells yeah.
It's a random Central Asian country. Like how you see those photos of Nicolas Cage and Steven Seagal in like Kazakhstan wearing indigenous garb because the president invited them over.
You know, that's who they should send to Israel to sort things out. Steven Seagal.
Mm.
He would use his Aikido to just enforce peace.
Well,
He's also a cop, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he's like deputized too.
That's so
That
that's
show
so
where
funny.
he's a sheriff. I'm just repeating something I mentioned on Come Town. But in that show, he like for real genuinely killed a family's dog by accident, like running it over with an APC. Or I wasn't an APC, like a Jeep or whatever that the sheriff's department had.
Yeah, well, he's Steven Seagal, so he
Yeah.
could kill a dog or two.
What are some of your favorite '90s action movies?
My favorite one,
Some of
Die Hard, of course.
'80s.
No, the third one.
Oh, okay.
Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the first one I
With
saw.
a Vengeance.
Yeah, that was the first one I saw as a kid. So I didn't get the whole blood feud, but I understood like the action sequences and thought it was really fucking cool, especially because it was my city.
Mhm.
But then after that, I got older and I saw the other two, and I was like, oh, it's a whole trilogy, and I was like,
Well, more than a trilogy. They're like, at this point, it's over. But I think they ended up making like 5 movies.
yeah, I don't really count those.
Yeah,
I like Bad Boys.
yeah.
I
Bad
liked-
Boys, good choice.
I like Independence Day. Yo, Will Smith owned that whole decade, but he just fell off so hard by being
Yeah, he really
cucked.
did. That being cocked, losing his energy, trying to make his kids stars.
Yeah.
And I'm good. Another thing is, I think he worked best when he had boyish, good. He's still a good-looking guy, but like,
Yeah, he still does adrenochrome, you know.
but when he was, his face and his demeanor fit being in his like 20s and 30s. I guess 30s at the time, where he's playing like these very young characters, or even if they're not, their energy is young. Like in Men in Black, one of my favorite movies as a boy.
Oh, that was a fucking good one. Oh, my favorite line in that whole movie. Well, it's not my favorite, but I remember it the most. Where it's like, you know, Elvis is dead, right? And he's like, Elvis is not dead. He just went home. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Men in Black is such a great movie. Shame that all the sequels suck.
Did you see Flubber?
I think so. As a
They-
child,
I
parts
think
of it.
I can't believe they haven't made a reboot of that or a sequel or tried.
I don't know if there's enough. Maybe it would be dependent. Well, maybe
They did
That's a
Space
good
Jam,
point.
for fuck's sake.
That's true. That's a good point. You're right. It is a bit surprising. Space
Um,
Jam 2 seemed very dire from everything I heard. Actually, no, it had a long production timeline.
Also,
so-
LeBron James can't fucking act, but that's
Yeah.
that's a given. What else? Action movies though. 90s action movies. Fucking I liked a lot of heady ones. You know, like it's not really action, but like the Thomas Crown Affair was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, back in the 90s, you still had like blockbuster thriller films.
Oh, you know what was good? The
The-
Devil's Own. Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
He was a sleeper rookie. He was like
Yeah.
a sick rookie back in that time.
Yeah, he was. You're right. Well before, like, even Seven is like 97 or 98, I think.
it was great.
Yeah. Him in Cool World. So you mentioned Space Jam earlier. Cool World.
Yep.
Not a good movie, but visually interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Who Framed
narratively
Roger
stupid.
Rabbit? Roger Rabbit.
Ripped off of Cool World.
The other way around.
Oh,
Cool World's
really?
ripped- Yes.
Shit.
Who Framed Roger
that
Rabbit
makes sense actually.
Is a great, fantastic achievement in filmmaking.
100%. 100%. Okay, so the Brad Pitt. He was also. Oh, actually, it's not Brad Pitt. Val Kilmer was another superstar from back those days.
Yeah.
You know what movie carried through multiple decades? I think wasn't Lethal Weapon. Didn't it go through?
Yeah, it's
Started in
first
the
two
80s?
are in the 80s, and then I think 3 and 4 is the 90s.
4 was in the 90s.
Yeah, for sure.
God, I love those movies.
Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 are great movies.
I think 4 was amazing.
Really?
4 was sick, dude.
I saw a little bit as a kid on TV.
Well,
but-
you know what? You know what made 4 so interesting?
What?
Jet Li.
Yes, yes, that makes sense.
That because that before then it was all like about guns and guns and shooting and guns. But then 4 was finally they squared off against the guy who they even had the scene where it's like
Because you have that hilarious fake martial arts scene in the first Lethal Weapon between Gary Busey and Mel Gibson, where uh, they're fighting in a sprinkler on Christmas Day. They're going to arrest Gary Busey, the like hitman of the villain, and then both him and Mel Gibson are like, "No, we need to square off." So all these cops like forming a fighting circle
that's
around them,
hilarious.
and it's like they're just cheering on Mel Gibson as he's in a
Come on,
fake
come on.
and they're doing fake kung fu moves. They're both Vietnam
But
vets.
that's funny because you go on to like Lethal Weapon 4 and suddenly like it's so gritty, mad bloody, and it's like it's so raw too because in the movie Jet Li's character he's only working with the triad to help get his brother free, and he's like the
Yeah,
sick martial artist and his brother was imprisoned or something and trying to get him like freed up.
yeah,
So his brother ends up dying towards the end, and Jet Li's all pissed and sitting there like because that's it, he's out of the game, he lost everything that he was in there for anyway. And then like Riggs and his partner, they were both like, all right, well, we could call it a day. We don't have to deal with this guy. We got the bad guy. Everything's good. No one got away. We got the counterfeit money and all that shit. We could just call it a day. But then they decide they were like, they use some cool badass one liner or some callback. It's like, how do you dodge that bullet? Let's go ask him. You want to ask him? Let's ask him. And like that was an awesome fight because it was just like I'm pretty sure like 20 minutes of Jet Li just kicking both their fucking asses, like
yeah.
Donald Glover and Mel Gibson just fucking
Well,
them
they're
up.
just older men and not like athletes like him.
So
But
that's why it was such a cool fight.
yeah,
And like it was so gritty to the point where it's like Riggs's shoulder got dislocated, and they had a scene where he was actually like banging against the pillar to like snap it
yeah.
back. I was like, this is Lethal Weapon at its best. This is peak Lethal Weapon, to be honest. And like it was they finally ended up killing him by it was an underwater death, which I guess makes sense. Like you can't
Yeah,
beat,
water's his weakness.
yeah, you can't beat that guy, fucking standing. Like he's gonna fuck you up. He's Jet fucking Li, man. Like so yeah, Lethal Weapon 4, best Lethal Weapon in my opinion. I hope they never make a Lethal Weapon 5. I
I
would
mean, they're both so old,
yeah. So
which won't stop them. You're right.
it would be about their proteges or their children or some gay shit.
No, it's so dependent on those two guys and their dynamic acting together. I mean, there was a TV show,
I mean,
Lethal
look,
Weapon TV show. I know.
look.
So it actually already was
Oh
remade
yeah,
as a
you're right.
TV
You're
show.
right. You're right. But
Which
but they didn't do it like Bill and Ted did it.
yeah, no, it makes more sense to do it like that, like as a TV show with entirely new cast.
Did you like the new Bill and Ted?
I did not see it actually.
It was pretty woke.
Mm.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean in a realistic, like, yeah, it was pretty woke.
I find I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything new about legacy sequels. Not a big fan. Top Gun Maverick is a weird exception to it.
Yeah.
Okay, well the cat's in that way, so there I am.
Yeah, no, I was just waiting for him to jump on the shelf. That's what he always does.
Yeah, he needs attention.
No, he doesn't need attention.
Well, he's getting it because he's posed very majestically.
Nah, it's just his favorite spot. He just likes high spots. Also, I'm glad like he's getting exercise. So he doesn't become like a fat lazy piece of shit like some cats.
Yeah.
Cuz like I was on Signal talking to my old Discord boys, and one of their girlfriend's cats just died.
Mm.
She just came home, and
Sorry to hear that.
that's what I said. And like it made me think like, wow, that'll be really sad. I just walk into my apartment, my cat's dead. I mean, my cat's only fucking like not even 3 years old, so but still,
Another 10 years to go, maybe, or more.
I'm hoping my cat lives to be like 20.
Yeah, as long as still good, he's still in good health.
Yeah, my ex-girlfriend's cat lived to be fucking 20 years old. Then again, it was a pretty sterile household. Like,
Yeah.
but then again, it's not like I'm smoking cigarettes in the house and shit, and I'm not feeding the cat like absolute garbage, and he's not getting dehydrated, so I don't think he'll have like
Yeah.
kidney problems. Got to get a fountain for your cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a must. You can't feed your cat, water your cat just through a stationary bowl. It just never, it doesn't work.
Huh.
I mean, because chances are, by the time you do it, you get around to putting new water, fresh water in your cat's bowl. They're
Yeah.
not going to feel like drinking water at the moment. And when they do want to drink it, they don't want to drink it from that because it's been too still. Cats don't
Mm.
like, you know,
Yes.
they could tell when water's been still for too long. So when you get a cat fountain, like a little tiny water fountain, uh, that just runs when you plug it in, they like that because it's constantly running.
Yeah.
If you even add a little filter to it, there's a filtration system, so they always taste fresh water. It's cool,
Nice.
and that's essential because that's one of the biggest reasons why cats get sick. People don't know it; they just put water in their cat's bowl and they're like, whatever, he'll drink when he drinks. But no, like cats dehydrate themselves more often than not.
All the fur or their behavior.
No, they're just saying they don't have access to like running like
Oh,
fresh
right, right.
flowing
I see.
water all the time, so they just not drink. I mean, they can handle it. Like they can handle not drinking. That's why they do it. So, but they do it too often. By the time they get older, suddenly their kidneys aren't working right.
I see.
It's better they stay regularly hydrated than just like not drink water at all. That's why like I
Yeah,
would I would literally like rather a cat drink out of the toilet than not drink any water.
makes sense. How much is the fountain you have?
Oh, it's like $25. It's cheap.
Nice. So very reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, you could even get more expensive ones. Shit. You ever been to an we're oh shit. Damn, they spoiled the movie for me. Dicky Multisanti. Damn.
Mm.
Now I gotta see this. Cause I like that character. I mean, he was kind of a jerk, but still I like that character.
Yeah. Um, you should put up a bunch of like tapestries on your wall. I think you should decorate a little bit more.
Yeah, for the energy.
What?
For the energy.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be good.
What I really want is like more
Nice
paintings
vibes, more paintings.
done
Like
by
it,
my friends.
yeah. You could have hanging shawls. You could have a gong on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next to your swords.
No, it's that's I sorry, I just saw the last line of
Cool. I'm glad you left the movie on. It's really helping with the
no,
podcast.
because he was like, that's my Uncle Tony, the man I'm going to hell for. No, the man I went to hell for. Shit. That's such a thought, like a person you go to hell for.
Yeah. Excuse me for yawning into the microphone.
What?
Excuse me for yawning into the microphone.
It's all good. You might have had a long day. Who knows?
Yeah. So what else has been up with you or in the world? What's a new subject?
I'm really just trying to carve out time for my own music. I got to build my own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I got to figure out how to quit my job. Like
How to make enough money that you don't need to work it.
That's my next.
And
That's
you
my
can
next
focus
puzzle.
on your other projects.
That's my next puzzle I need to solve. Is just not have to have a job. If I could figure out how to do that, then I think then I could get to the next set of games, like the next set of puzzles.
So main project right now is figuring out how you don't have to work.
Yeah, which should I could understand why it's taking me time to figure this one out because if it was easy, everyone would have done it already. So clearly, this one's a little more challenging than.
Well, I guess what you want to have some passive streams of income.
That's one
you
way
want
to do
assets that are.
Look, the problem here is there's multiple ways for me to do this. I could forsake earthly possessions and just become a nomad, but then
Yes.
what about my cat?
Right.
So I don't know. That could still be an option. I could travel my cat, but I don't want to. Then there's also like another option of like being a content creator.
Yes.
But that's also like a whole commitment. So I have to really.
That's an incredible one. Yes, and you just end up creating.
But
content.
then I also like when I think about it, I am already kind of a content creator because I make music, and now I add like a video element to the tracks I release. So it's like a live little video demo thing. So that's something to consider, And yeah, maybe I'll just keep making those YouTube videos, and I think I'm just gonna keep trying to make like techno, and I also have like one track with Bo coming up.
Yeah.
I still have to fucking edit.
Mm.
And I gotta release that. But then like I'm definitely gonna put more time into focusing on that track. Yeah, then from there I'm just gonna stack up cash.
Sounds like something of a plan.
Keep investing in the stock market. Well, kind of. I mean,
That'll probably do you the best of all your options. I think you have a better chance of having consistent passive income that way.
well, what I really need to do is I gotta wait. If I want this to happen, because the stock shit, I could just keep investing slowly. As
Yeah.
like I modulate my risk and stuff
You should
in
do.
return. But if I could figure out a way, I mean, if I could just wait until like, because I did this before, so I know this works. Like when the pandemic happened, my first instinct was to like, buy cheap ass stocks,
Yeah.
and I did, and it paid off huge. So
I know a bunch of people made money that way.
yeah, so if anything like that ever fucking happens again, then you best believe I gotta fucking do that, right? It's
Yeah, I think a lot of other people. Yeah. A bunch of people made money during the pandemic. A bunch of ordinary people.
yeah, I did that.
Also,
Well, that's
the
what do you think
unemployment
happens
benefits.
when you give people checks for like thousands of dollars and you give them
Yeah.
nothing but time on their hands? Many people are going to find their hands like find their way into like
Yeah.
stock brokerage accounts. Like
And was readily available due to new technologies, Robinhood and the like.
yeah, but I never used Robinhood really. I
Mm,
went straight
all all the other
to retards.
retail
Retard
trading.
traders. Yeah, those guys, they all went into Robinhood. I just went straight to my bank's brokerage. Because for me it was different. Like I got into before even the lockdown.
Mm.
All I knew was that it was going to happen. And then I was like, shit,
When did you hear about COVID?
like February, the February of that year.
2020?
Yeah.
You weren't reading about it in January?
I mean, yeah, I was reading about it in January, but I didn't really start moving until February.
Oh, fair. I started moving in December of that year.
Nice.
December of 2019.
Yeah.
When the early reports were coming out of China, I got very concerned about it.
Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're wrong.
Well, also, I was just telling everyone, look, we're all going to shut down for a while. This is going to be a big deal. This
Okay,
is a
yeah.
global event.
That's once it sunk into me that everything was going to shut down, the economy was going to shut down. I'm going to be like, stocks are going to crater. So I was like, everything is going to go way down. So even my like stupid ass monkey brain.
A lot of people made a lot of money shorting the market.
Well, that was the riskier way to do it, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because that's constantly waiting on it to actually happen. That's not a fun game. I would
Yeah.
rather wait for it to actually happen than buy cheap. That's the best position to be in, because like everything's crashed, everyone's panicking. You're flush with cash. You're like, all right, let's buy, and that's a great feeling. I mean, the only challenge to that is you got to time the bottom, because
Yeah.
as it's going down, you're like, is this the bottom? And then you buy in, but it keeps going lower.
Yeah.
Is this
Yes.
the bottom? So you got to wait till it's rock bottom.
Yeah.
But once you find that rock bottom, and you'll know when it hits rock bottom, then you start buying, and you
Yeah.
can't lose. You cannot
Yeah.
lose, because you have there's only two outcomes from there. It's either A, the world ends and we're all fucked anyway, and your money means nothing, or B, it goes back up, right? So it's like, it's a no-brainer.
Also, if you're buying at that low price, you're not losing that much money if it stays at that price forever or goes out of business.
No, exactly. I mean,
A
if
few
it-
hundred
no,
in
but there's also certain,
AMC.
but you also know that there's certain things that will not. I mean, the things that can go out of business are more fun because there's more risk and return and reward. But there's certain companies that will never go out of business. Like, all right, where I made my bulk money at first, when it came to the first initial stock investment
Yes.
during COVID, was ExxonMobil.
Mm,
It was like I was buying like hundreds of shares at a time with each paycheck I got, because I wasn't fucking spending it.
right.
So I just kept dumping it into ExxonMobil stocks when it was like super duper duper cheap. Also airline stocks, because obviously
Yeah.
that was also a no-brainer. Like, I know these airlines are not going out of business, but
yeah, they're
definitely
going to go back up.
Yeah,
Airlines, ExxonMobil. Honestly, I didn't do much. I barely did anything. I did get in on AMC.
But you know what's always a good stock to bet on?
What?
To buy like safe one, U-Haul. U-Haul is one of the most like bulletproof stocks ever. Let me explain. Here's the thing about U-Haul. What do they sell? What are their services?
Moving boxes,
trucks, right?
storage.
Yeah,
Yes.
storage and long-term or short-term moving and shit. Basically, if you have to move from point A to point B with all your shit, you get a U-Haul.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, that. What does that mean? That means if things are going good, you get a promotion at your job, you have like way more money in a short span of time.
Yeah.
You move to a better place. What do? You get a U-Haul, right? Now, conversely, when things get really bad and the economy suddenly just like goes through a huge downturn for whatever reason,
Yeah.
and you lose your home, what's the first thing you do? You get a U-Haul. And on top of that, like because and you know what? It's not even like the government doesn't know this. This is why U-Haul is actually like a subsidized company. You know, like it's literally backed by the U.S. government. You know, U-Haul is not never gonna fail. It's like foolproof. So whoever runs or started U-Haul is started like an immortal business as far as like this economy is concerned.
Yes. Um,
It's like literally imprinted into our brains. Like we don't say like let's rent a moving truck. It's like let's get a U-Haul.
yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like that's how embedded they are into our very like
Well, a
fabric
lot
of.
of companies like that, but that's true. So you made a bunch of money off of COVID. Um, this is also a cliche, but what a weird time that year was. The absolute weirdest year of probably everyone's life
Yeah, but I
that's
don't know.
alive.
I'd still rather like come up in the stock market in the 90s, you know, with like penny
Of
stocks and
course.
shit. Like that was awesome. Like the fact that
Yeah, like Bonfire of the Vanities.
yeah. I mean, because you can't even feel bad for the people that lost, because everyone that like you're only in it because of greed. So if you lose, you lost because of greed. You didn't lose for any virtuous or altruistic reason. You lost because you got greedy. That's the name of the game. So it's like you don't have to feel bad for anyone that lost out in the stock market because you only get suckered into it anyway out of pure greed.
Yeah.
And some people are good at it. But the problem is like the stock market is just totally divorced from like the actual financials of any given business. You know,
Yeah, it
like the value
is.
of a stock. So
Well, there are factors, but yes.
so that being said, it's more like gambling, but it's also like you get better odds than in a casino
Well,
technically.
yes, much, much better odds if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, so really what's the factor here? It's not pure chance. It's not hard finances. It's psychology. That is the game of stocks. It's purely a psychological game. That's why I say I joke sometimes, but it's true. Like when I say like the stock market is like astrology for men,
Yeah.
it's true. It's like it's putting your proverbial blood on the line.
It's not dealing with people, though. I feel like there's other male interests that deal with interpersonal dynamics that feel more comparable to astrology. But I know what you mean of the magicalness of the stock market. I
No,
understand
no, no. I
that.
don't mean
But
magical. I don't mean magical because also it's different now. My idea of the stock market is
yes,
way different than like even 15 years ago or even like maybe 10 years ago. Because like back in the day, you had to have a stockbroker. You had to have like a middleman constantly, like a brokerage account, and you didn't have like a crazy cool user interface that you could access to just bloop 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 bloop, bloop like zip money back and forth from your bank account to
yeah,
this digital account. Like you couldn't do that. You had to always like call up your guy and be like, "Yo, how's my position doing? How's my portfolio doing?" Like you had to know your guy and actually trust your guy. Now you don't need that fucking guy. Now you could do everything, which is why the whole market is like busted right now. Like
that makes sense. Yes, with the way modern trading works and retail traders. Um,
yeah, it's really funny. It's good stuff though. It's fun.
hmm.
But you know, I haven't been playing in the game for like a minute, but now that like I'm in a very comfortable position, especially if I'm trying to like figure out ways to not work, yeah, I'll do that. If I have any other passive source of income, what I could do is I could just dump all that passive income into my brokerage account and my investment account.
That's
And
probably your best way of making enough money to no longer have to focus on making money.
indeed, I'll drink to that. Oh fuck. Let's see what time we're at. I think we're almost done. Yeah, we're at the 40-minute mark. So before time's up, you know what we should talk about? Israel and Palestine.
Okay, sure, that sounds good. Yeah, it's been on everyone's mind. There's a lot of commentary on it.
I mean, this is probably
There's
going to
some
be
interesting downstream effects from it.
these are probably going to be dated perspectives, mind you, for all you listening, because like this was recorded probably a couple weeks before time of recording, so keep that in mind. I have like a little bit of backlog, which is what I need. I'm sorry. I apologize to when you actually do listen to it. It's just I got music and shit to work on. You know, like I gotta get my like other shit together. But yeah, what's your take on Israel and Palestine as of today?
As of today,
You think they're gonna wipe out Palestine? I think so. I think
Yeah, the Gaza Strip seems like well, I don't think it'll be totally flat, and I think public opinion might turn against it,
I
or
still think they're
international
gonna push
opinion.
out the Palestinians completely at some
It
point.
would be the thing that would make this one of the things that could solve all of this. Um, kind of wish that. Excuse me. Kind of wish that they had been. Well, Egypt doesn't want them. Jordan, Syria don't want them. Um,
They're just gonna end up as like
okay. Sorry. Yeah. What are you gonna say?
No.
Oh. Um. People feel obligated to give an opinion on this, but this is a very particular geopolitical conflict. Um, it's vastly studied in geopolitics. People feel the need to have an opinion on it, but you can tell everyone's very nervous because they don't really know anything about the
Well, I know if anyone's to
dynamics.
blame, it's the British because they're the ones that dumped.
Why not the Ottoman Empire? You know, here people talk about the two-state solution, but how about a no-state solution?
That would be cool. I would love
Like
to.
Israel, like Palestine, the whole area just falls under British mandate again. We just return the whole area to the British, and then they can give
Commonwealth, and
orders.
it becomes a Commonwealth
Yes.
nation. I mean, both sides would be
It
pissed
po-
about that.
Yeah, it would be totally untenable, but it'd be a hilarious solution.
You know what? That's like you know what solution would be similar to that? Like if it's just as implausible as if North and South Korea were to unite. You know, like it's just as impossible. It's one of those things that's just never going to happen. They're more one side is more likely to wipe the other side out or both or each other out than it would ever get to like that. You know. So if Israel Palestine became like a whole just Commonwealth nation, that would be fucking sick.
It'd be hilarious, and then they just have to start taking orders from the King of England.
And you know what? That would be really good for Britain too. Like that would be really good for them. They take control of the Holy Land. It'll be like the Crusades, but like clean.
Yeah, like Crusader Kingdom of the 12th century.
Holy shit!
What?
No, that would be sick if that happened. It would basically become like a hot.
Oh,
Canada.
a Crusader democracy.
It would be like desert Canada.
Yeah. I wonder. Okay, a couple of things. I wonder if Hamas had a greater success or a higher body count than they expected. I think it's being commonly said right now, theorizing, I think it's correct, it's my take, is that Hamas launched this attack to have a heavy blowback or retaliation. This is to foil like peace deals between Israel and Saudi Arabia. I do wonder if it ended up being more successful than they expected because Israel was caught on is entrenched in its own inner cultural war politics between Mizrahi, Middle Eastern, and Ashkenazi European Jews. Whether this is a Mossad or Netanyahu intelligent failure or not, whether this is not a false flag, but this is a Pearl Harbor theorized incident where Bibi let the Hamas attack go through so you have a justification to level Gaza.
Who's giving the Hamas these weapons? Like, where do they get their guns?
They have some level of. I think a lot of it is like tunnel systems or something odd like that.
Yeah, but who's like the supplier?
I think they get stuff through Iran. They get food from the UN. The UN provides food. Israel provides water and electricity. I'm sure they have a bunch of other ways of smuggling. Probably from Egypt. What am I saying? Egypt is right on their border. Egypt doesn't want to take the Palestinians in, even though they could. Palestinians are a people without a nation.
Because their guns have to come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm. It's probably Egypt. Egypt makes so much sense. It's right next to the Gaza Strip.
I mean, not just guns. You're also talking about like missiles, like
missile
systems and shit.
All their weapons. Yes.
Yeah. To fight a war, basically.
Yeah.
A proxy war.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not even a proxy war. That's a full blown like culture war / war for survival / jihad /
yeah.
You know like / like colonist invasion.
It feels doesn't this feel like a '90s throwback, like an Islamic terrorist attack in this case for a quasi-state actor? Oh,
Um,
it's callback, not '90s and 2000s
yeah, it's like,
Bush. This feels like a plot line from the Bush administration.
yeah, you ever see Zero Dark 30?
No, no, but I know of it. Yeah, this is for real Bin Laden
I think
stuff.
I think maybe that's why we need wars like this, so that we could have movies like that.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Like, as long as we have this shit, we'll always have like suspenseful, like desert filmed fucking action soldier movies with the same like motifs and the intros with the Arabic lady singing. Like
Yeah. What else would I say about it?
and they
The
have a quick shot of the food, but not shot can't be too long because it looks like shit. Like,
yeah,
no, I'm kidding. The food looks good. Food looks
yeah, it
tight.
does look good. Were you surprised by the body count?
No, not at all.
You're someone who, yeah, me neither. As someone who works in electronic dance music, did it hit close to home that they massacred a rave?
No, because simply put, like I know the Israelis like to party, and I know enough like Jews who've been back and forth there
Yeah,
to tell me it's like everyone parties there like it's going to be their last day on earth because it really can be their last day on earth for a reason. They literally live right next door to people who want to
yeah,
fucking kill them. So when I heard that happening at a music festival, no less, I was like, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure like a lot of them expected something like that could happen at
yeah,
any given time because that's what it means to live in Israel. They know that. Every
yeah.
Israeli knows that. Hence, they're in the fucking. Every Israeli citizen has to join the fucking military. Like of course they know that. Same thing with
They
South
still
Koreans.
have their guns. Like all their guns are stored at a depot. They would have been doing better if they were armed under this circumstance.
Well, you'd also have to imagine a lot of the people stuck. Maybe some of the people who were there were Americans.
No, there are people, Americans among the ones killed. A couple of Filipino and Nepali, like migrant labor, got killed in it. Like 20, like 10 Filipinos, 10 Nepalis, or something like that.
Yeah, sucks. Imagine if I was there and I was one of those people that was like that had their hands tied behind their back.
Well, I don't know. I think your DJing is so good. You would have just attacked the Hamas guys with sound waves and notes.
Nah,
You'd just be throwing giant multicolored notes at them.
I think for the most part I would just seem pretty harmless to both sides, but at the same time nobody would give a fuck if I just got blown away randomly like smoke.
I think you
Like,
just get considered an Israeli because you're not
oh yeah, yeah,
Palestinian.
that's true.
Like, even if you're just a tourist visiting Israel, you're still part of the Israeli state as far as they're concerned.
What I would immediately try to do is I would try to get my hands on a camera
Yeah.
and some kind of vest to say like I'm press.
I don't think Hamas would have cared during this attack, nor would the IDF most of the time.
But they wouldn't care to kill you either. They're like, oh, it's just this fucking.
Sure, but you might, I don't know. I would, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's following that kind of declaring neutrality now.
Yeah.
Declaring neutrality rules. I
You
don't
saying
think.
it's just a full hot war zone, fully hot war zone?
Yeah, exactly. I would expect you to be killed by either more Hamas, I guess.
As a
but-
soldier, where do you think it sucks worse to fight? Like in conditions in Ukraine or conditions in Israel, like in by Gaza?
Gaza, Israel, it's going to be a lot of house to house, which is very stressful stuff.
And
but
hot.
the
And cold as
brutality,
fuck in the night.
but the brutality of Ukraine's probably worse, right?
Yeah, because
now.
they're throwing like grenades in like rainy day houses and like in actual houses.
It's such a long, grinding war of attrition.
Because like like apparently like war zones in Ukraine, it's not like house to house like so like congested, but the houses are spread out enough where
Yeah.
it's like you have to huff it from one house to another. Like you have to cross terrain, especially now. There's like it's been unattended to for so long, so there's a lot of foliage in those areas, and it's like you'll be like patrolling with your squad.
Yeah.
And like you say, all right, let's take cover by this house, and then they just like lean back, and then they're just chilling, leaning against the house. Suddenly they'll hear voices, and they'll be like, "Shut the fuck up." And on the other side of the wall, they'll be like, you'll hear the same, whatever, like, "Shut the fuck up." And then like one of your boys just to be safe tosses a grenade inside the window, and it explodes, and you hear a bunch of dudes screaming, and then you just like point your guns and you just shoot, and then you look inside, and it turns out there's like a whole squad of like Spetsnaz or some shit, and you're like, oh shit, you could have just died. You were this close to dying, if you weren't the one to see them first. That's probably like really scary. That would make me poop out my heart. I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like we could have died, man. You know, and they have a lot of this footage in GoPro. Like a lot of those guys are
Yeah,
wearing GoPros. Like pretty cool.
it is pretty cool. It's fascinating to see the war like that.
Not like
Um,
that in the IDF. Over there, it's I bet they're a lot more like
I'm sure they're locked down on a lot of those things because
yeah.
they're very optics conscious.
Yep. Yep. Whereas in Ukraine, it's like they're just they're flat.
Some,
They're still like in whiplash. You know.
yeah, they're very Slavic of them just recording it with their
Yeah.
and uploading it to the YouTube channels or whatever. Um,
There's also a lot of like West. There's a lot of Americans out there right now too.
yeah, I know America has some level of. I mean, obviously beyond just
No, like
providing
volunteer
arms.
idiots,
Yeah,
like dickheads from there, just going there. Say, I want to volunteer. Like,
yeah. A bunch of people get killed early, but there's other particularly like ex-military guys who keep going on. I know.
but some of those guys are good.
Yeah,
Some of those guys are good. They go out there and sometimes a lot of those guys go out there and they don't even like they're not there to fight. They just want to be
yeah,
there as a to like help people who get injured and stuff. Which I guess like that's nice of them.
yeah. Um, what do you think of Israel Palestine right now?
Oh man. I mean, on a biblical level, I feel like I'm more scared of there just suddenly being peace in the Middle East like that because that'd be a sign of the end of times. So this is just basically maintaining the status quo, if anything. I mean, first of all, is Israel? You think they're really capable? Like, because a lot of I see the word slow genocide go around. Like, do you think they're really capable of wiping out all the Palestinians from there? I don't think it's possible. I don't. I think those people have such a strong will to survive. I think they have like there's every
If Israel didn't have every camera in the world facing them, I think it would be a lot easier. Um,
The problem is, I also think the more the slower and further you push like your a people like that, they're gonna get
yeah,
more and more and more and more desperate. Maybe who knows? What if they get their hands on like a dirty bomb or something? You know, like
yeah. I think that Israel very well could ethnically cleanse the nation of
first of all, all right,
Palestinians, but
for just for the sake of
yeah,
hypotheticals, give me one scenario where Israel would just be allowed under the entire public gaze to just wipe them out, like to go through like a pure genocide. Like, what would have to happen for the whole world to just be like, you know what, Israel, go ahead, kill them all. We don't give
yeah.
a fuck.
I don't
Push them
know.
the fuck out. Push them into
Um,
the sea. What do you think would have to? I can't imagine what would convince the world essentially to just like
yeah,
let that happen.
I can't think of anything. I mean,
Like what? Like
large percentage of the Israeli population die.
I mean,
Like if
you
Tel
could literally
Aviv or
cut the heads
Jerusalem,
off babies, and they would still.
Jerusalem, Tel Aviv getting bombed, nuked, whatever, rendered uninhabitable, or just a high loss of life there would probably give the go ahead to
Yeah,
go
but
in.
if it's a nuke,
Also,
then
they would just mostly force the Palestinians to move to neighboring Arab countries,
that's true.
and then they would probably end up being moved
They
as
would force them
refugees.
into like like large scale, almost like concentration
No, they
camps.
wouldn't. They don't even have to do that. They would just say like you have to move there, and then it would be an issue within those countries. Um, and they would probably end up getting moved to like Western countries,
And
either
what's gonna
Europe or
happen?
America,
What's gonna
and
happen is they're
disperse.
gonna still slowly get whittled down, but they become more and more like trained and like elite in survival skills and tactics and subterfuge and assassination, and they become a secret sect of assassins. And years and centuries later, they're gonna look back. It's like we once had a land called Palestine. That is where our
Yeah,
people are from. And now we are a secret
yeah,
organization of shadow assassins.
I think it would be. It might end up being a thing where Israel's able to dump the Palestinian population on Europe in some way.
You think so? Like
Yeah, I could
Britain?
easily see that, or America, or frankly Germany. Um,
Yeah, why not? I mean, there's always cases like that, like where like a white nation mostly has like a huge influx of refugees.
yeah.
But it's like it's never a problem. Those refugees don't even fully integrate ever really into the local
Yeah.
populace.
Well,
First of all,
anyway,
it's not even because they're culturally there's a cultural barrier, but also they all have like PTSD by the time they get there,
right.
so they're not trying to
Well,
like
the
talk to anyone.
generation after them, maybe, but maybe not. Um, anyway, I could easily see that or something like that happening. The rest of the Arab world has lost interests in well, Arabs are all racist against Palestinians. Non-Palestinian Arabs and like Berbers from North Africa don't like Palestinians as individuals, but they still root for them against Israel. Um, Israel having um, I apologize. How much for my constant
No,
yawning?
look, you're tired because you
Yeah,
just ate a big plate of General Tso's
that's
chicken
true.
and fried rice
I didn't sleep
and a
that much
side order
either.
of crab ring. Yeah, you got the itis, my friend.
Yeah,
You got the wigga itis.
yeah. Um, you would hope. I don't know. I think what Hamas was hoping for was like 40 to 60,000 Gazans killed, foiling Iran. I'm sorry, Israel, Saudi peace deals, and increasing international condemnation of Israel from the international community, by which I mean America, America in particular, and also the EU, but mostly America. Um, I think the long-term goal of Palestine or Palestinian of Hamas, I should say, is America will get less and less interested in supporting Israel. They'll be able to inflict and they'll be able to eat the population loss, like those 40,000, 60,000 Palestinians, which I'm theorizing would be killed. They would just replace that in a year or two of having kids.
Or what if like Hamas just keeps picking up their attacks and makes it they just keep putting up a worse and worse and more bitter and bitter
Well,
fight as time goes on?
yeah, I mean, it just means the whole area being occupied and then brutal street to street combat. Worse than Fallujah.
Is there even anywhere habitable for Palestinians in that whole landmass?
Gaza?
Is Gaza the only place they have left, really?
No, they have a whole bunch of communities and settlements and like historical villages in like central Israel. It's a very complex dynamic where the Palestinian areas. I don't know. They get like utilities supplied by Israel. I mentioned that before. Um, it's habitable. Yeah, it's like a very dense city,
Okay.
and they do get a bunch of outside help, particularly with food.
That's mad dangerous. Like like that's literally like constantly living amongst the like. All right, from a purely tactical perspective, like for operational security,
Yeah.
if your side is here and their side is there, and there's no degree of separation of enemy lines.
Yeah.
You're a
Well, they
danger,
have checkpoints and all that,
but
and
still,
walls.
like it's still like it's too close. Everything's too.
Yeah, that can be seen with those hang gliders they flew in.
It's a clusterfuck.
Yeah,
They flew in on hang gliders.
and both sides at this point have deep ties to it. Frankly, all the claims of Israelis being new revivals, it's somewhat true, but also even among the European Ashkenazi population, they've been in Israel for several generations. Um,
I wonder what their orders specifically where it's like, yeah, so as soon as you land in that stupid fucking rave, I want you to
start raping,
start wasting and
rape
raping.
at the rape at the rave.
Yeah, like seriously, like is that really what they were like going for? Like they were like, yo, listen, when you land, just do the most fucked up shit you
That
could
is
possibly.
it, because they wanted to have a retaliation that would still not be totally destroying the population, and then get international condemnation. Um,
Oh, you mean like they purposely wanted to be seen as the evil invading
yes,
force?
so they have a heavy counterattack, but it's not going to destroy them totally. Maybe not. There's a theory that the Hamas attack ended up being more successful than they were expecting. Like they were expecting it to have like 100 casualties and mostly be military persona instead of supposedly like 1,000.
Yeah, they're trying to play the VC game, the Viet Cong game. Like
This is a different dynamic. Viet
but
Cong
but
on
but there it's like a larger scale of it's like a meta war, fighting a meta war than just like actual like ground battles. You're also
Mhm.
considering the optics war, that also happens or
Yeah.
precedes or follows that. So yeah, that's
It's
that's what the
fairly
Vietnam
is yeah, that's true. The guerrilla warfare.
to despirit your enemies and not just defeat them on the ground.
Israel apparently is lacking in artillery shells. I guess they could do aerial bombardment, but I don't know how much they want to do that or how
I
limited they
mean,
are.
all right, so let's be real. Israel has some of the best trained soldiers in the world, but they can never go full on destruction mode ever because they're always technically on home turf. They can't just start carpet bombing everything. They
They
can't.
could carpet bomb Gaza. They very well could.
Maybe.
Um, all the I know they're heavily fortified because they probably replicated the 2006 war with Lebanon. Probably every single building or whatever in Gaza is has booby traps, tunnels, heavily fortified weapons catches,
Yeah.
caches. Um,
And they're pissed off.
yes,
They're so angry.
yeah, they did surprisingly well in this interaction.
How do you think it's going to turn out? You think it's going to be end with full on genocide?
In the
Like
long
Rwanda
term,
status?
maybe in the long term, but I suspect Israel's going to go in, take heavier losses than expected, do aerial bombardments. They're going to knock out a bunch of Palestinians, including a bunch of civilians. I know they cut the water, so they're going to uh, have people dying of
Well, dehydration,
thirst, dehydration. Yeah,
heat strokes.
yeah. I think that Israel will start getting backlash from footage of their casualties on the Palestinian population. They'll go back and forth, people's loyalty shifting. It's interesting how a bunch of people have gotten fired or their internships at a law firm being retracted due to them making pro Palestinian statements, usually without paying attention, like signing a email that got forwarded to them.
Yeah. Damn.
And I know there's complex stuff with, let's see, Hezbollah in Lebanon, um, Iran. I could see it turning into a larger, prolonged conflict, but maybe something like an accelerated form of the war on terror where Israelis are waiting around, even though doing counterstrikes and receiving various terrorist attacks.
Yeah, everything still seems pretty status quo. There's only one thing that I'm waiting for that I think is would really like change everything. And
What?
if China invades Taiwan,
Yeah.
that'll be like the final domino. You know, if that just randomly falls, then that would cause like I think then we should all be in a state of like what the fuck just happened.
Yeah,
Like
it's a case of world chaos, and probably in a bunch of ways things will continue going on as normal. But
yeah, of course, but it would still be like chaos across the fucking
yes,
world. It'll just life will just like subtly get shittier in a lot of ways. Suddenly our food doesn't taste as good, and suddenly
yeah,
like like
we still would have a lot of electronic entertainment.
we
Though.
go from like 20 movies a year to like 10. It's like
Yeah, but we probably will still have the internet. We'd still have a whole bunch of instant entertainment.
yeah, of course. If
And it's
anything,
just that
I think
there's
culture
a
would get better. If anything,
yeah,
culture
and
would
then
get
we
better.
just have a world war going on at the same time,
Yep.
just with less combatants.
Oh, you'll have, and then that'll be a way to get rid of more poor people that we have now. It'll be a way to like dump them into something. It's like, yeah, there's a world war going on, kid. Go sign up. Go do your part. Earn your citizenship. Right. That's what they're gonna do. Maybe that's what this is about. Maybe they're trying to generate a passive world war for like just another
Perpetual forever war for money.
yeah. So it's like a job opportunity. It's basically just another industry. Thing,
Oh, it's just more feather bedding. It's just a bullshit job, make work job.
yeah. Why would work be an exception to that?
Yeah, that's true.
Like war.
War as make work.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, war is, if anything, like it's not just. Yeah, it is hell. It does.
Yeah.
It does do a lot of damage to people, individual and on a mass scale, but at the same time, it pushes humanity too. It accelerates
Yeah.
development. Maybe in a lot of wrong things. Don't get me wrong, but I also know warfare has the capacity to push people like psychologically, physically, and spiritually. Even
Yeah.
like I mean, sometimes I wonder if without war, would humanity be humanity at all?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, as a great innovator, and we've brought to us this wonderful point. Though I don't know if Taiwan wants to invade. Sorry, if China wants to invade Taiwan.
I think they kind of want to.
I mean, they want to, but it would be such a bad decision.
Why?
Even with America occupied elsewhere, China and America are still so economically connected. It'd be interesting if we had a war with China while we were still
We
trading.
cannot go to war with China.
Yeah, exactly.
So if China went to war with Taiwan, what they would do, America would honestly probably force South Korea to go to war with China, which is scary to think about. But they probably would do that.
Yeah.
They would do that before jumping into war with China themselves. 100%.
I feel like America would intervene then against to protect Taiwan.
Maybe they would either use South Korea and Japan or both. Or
Just the
Japan.
population differences and industrial capacity.
They would use South Korea.
I don't think that they can use South Korea as a Ukrainian-like proxy.
Oh,
I think America would have to get involved because it's also the war people are expecting. Or
that would be
leading up
fucked to go to war with China. I don't want to go to war with China. I would hate.
Yeah, which is why I don't think China is going to invade Taiwan.
I mean, what do you think is scarier, a war with China or a war with Russia? 100% a war with China. A war with China sounds fucking terrifying. Like,
yeah, I think both nations are a lot weaker than they think, or maybe they're realizing it now. I think both nations have a lot of base and issues with
it's not that.
competency.
It's just how pervasive Chinese people and culture is to the world, not
Yes.
just us, but the world. Russian, yeah. There's Russians, everywhere here and
Yeah.
there. But the Chinese are literally everywhere, man. Like everywhere. You go to Israel, there's Chinese people there.
Yeah.
You go to Ukraine, there's Chinese people there. You go to Mexico, there's Chinese people there. There's Chinese people fucking every. Yo, you go to Alaska, 100% Chinese people there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's at least one or two Chinese guys.
You go to Russia, there's Chinese people. You go to Taiwan,
Yes.
there's Chinese people there.
Well, obviously there's Chinese people in
Like,
Taiwan.
bro, I don't know. Like, this China is just so pervasive. Like, they are a
Yeah.
pervasive nation.
Yeah, or invasive nation.
Invasive,
They have
pervasive.
terrible diplomacy. They're
But how do
terrible
they
at propaganda.
keep fucking spreading so efficiently? Like, it's insane.
Well, they're pretty devoted to it, and they just have such a
No,
high
no, the
population
Jews
that-
are devoted to it.
Yeah.
The Jews are literally devoted to it. But the Chinese just do it. There's a difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, then again, I think Islam and Muslims are the fastest growing religious population.
Well, Muslims, what, Arabs?
No, like Arabic Muslims are like.
Oh, yeah, the highest birth population
I think
is
Arabic
like
Muslims are spreading the fastest right now.
Africa has a very high population growth. Certain parts of Central Asia.
I mean, look, to be honest, like
And
you
that's
need I think first of all, I kind of believe overpopulation is a myth,
it is, yeah, it's generally agreed upon, especially with a coming population crunch.
and you really need more population growth period for humanity to
Yeah.
advance. We can't advance without making more people. It's just like, I mean, maybe now we can, especially with like recorded technology, but I think generally speaking, you can't.
Yeah.
As an intelligent species have keep developing, especially with our such short limited lifespans. Like all of us really do live such a short period of time.
Yes. I don't know. Well, it's a goodly enough measure for us.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, we live longer than most things in this world, right? We live longer than
A lot of other animals, yes.
except for turtles or some
Yeah.
shit.
Anyway, we've been recording for a while.
Yeah, so you have any closing statements? I like that. I don't know. I like talking in this one. This was a fun one.
It was a fun one, yes.
We should bring Richie on in the next one.
You're right, we should. I'll invite him next time.
Yeah, you don't have to invite him. You can invite someone else. You can invite your.
I'd be happy to invite him. I always forget that
You
have
can
the
invite your
room in
other
car.
roommate.
That's true, I could too.
Yeah.
I just keep forgetting that the room in your car situation.
What do you mean room in my car?
I forget that you can put your seats up in the back.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
You
true. I
can
could
carry
fit.
4 people. Yes.
Yeah, and I could carry a few more in the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
man.
we could